Good afternoon. Made it through those 2 words successfully. It is Tuesday, May 13th. The time is 2:06 p.m. Ms. Mauricio, would you please call us in or call the roll?
Chair Carlisle
is here. Chair observes a quorum. Today we have several items on the agenda, kicking off with housing, the Division of Housing and Community Development. Director Cash, the floor is yours. Welcome, welcome.
All right, great. So Ashley Cash, Director, Housing and Community Development, 170 North Main. Star, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Star Nichols, Deputy Director of Housing and Community Development, Operations and Finance.
Great. So this afternoon, we have our budget presentation for FY26, so we will run through that. This is essentially our org chart. Our service centers all roll up into that housing and community development. We've got 4 service centers. Administration is primarily planning, compliance functions that are not providing direct service to the community. And then the other service centers include staff that are administering those programs. Our authorized complement, we are at 70. We have, as you can see, 14 vacancies. There is a hiring freeze right now within the administrative portion. There are at least 3 vacancies that are, ready to go, essentially ready to be posted and filled when that time is appropriate. We also, within one of our departments, have an additional 3 vacancies. I think this is across the housing and the community initiatives, where there's been some promotion, and through that, they've left some vacant positions. We had one that we actually filled, but the candidate subsequently declined. And so we're hovering. We've got more vacancies than we usually have right now, but like I said, once that freeze is lifted, we're ready to go on posting those positions. And then we've got 11 positions that are funded 100% through federal grants. Our budget overview. Essentially, our key priorities: down payment assistance, which is always a huge program, community development grants, home repair assistance, affordable housing, and that will be construction or rehab of affordable housing, and then homelessness initiatives and staffing costs. And then you can see in our breakdown, the majority, and we're talking about our operating funds today, the majority of those operating funds are paying for personnel, staffing, those sorts of things. And then about 30% is direct subsidies and grants, which we'll get into in a second. This is our year-over-year forecast. I think it's the prior 5 years. You can see for the most part, we have remained relatively flat. With the exception of last year, we did an increase for a lot of our positions. We changed some of the positions and the responsibilities. So it went up from FY 24 to 25, but we're staying once again flat within that FY 26 request. Key drivers, these are key programs or key outcomes that we wanted to share with the council. And so, like I said, our down payment assistance program is always a great program. We were able to increase the amount that we fund about 2 years ago. So we provide up to $25,000 for first-time home buyers. It's a huge program. We were actually on the news, Fox 13, a couple of nights ago, sharing some successes of that story, of that. And so what that program does, we funded about 87 down payment assistance grants, and those were for people who are at 80% or lower of the area median income, or you might have been a police officer, firefighter, a teacher. And then we also have a program for targeted areas. There are specific zip codes. Some include Hickory Hill, Binghamton, parts of Fraser, and there are some other specific zip codes, but that's essentially where the down payment assistance programs, what they fund and who they fund. Next is our community development grants. And so this is where we make a lot of our direct grants to community organizations. These are up to about $15,000. Last year in FY25, we funded about 21 of those grants. They were around community service, youth service, engagement. Not too many are doing community gardens, but things around those types of just cultural arts and community activity. We have spent, of that money that we received in FY25, about $300,000 of that have been deployed through those grants. We still have encumbered $132,000, and we expect that those entities will spend those funds before the fiscal year is over. Home repair is a huge need. It continues to be a huge need in our community. Once again, we're talking about the operating side, and so really what the city is funding is primarily the staffing that run these programs. Last year in FY25, under our home repair, we funded roughly 90 homes for home repair, around $1.4 million. That could be our lead program, weatherization program, and then true repair programs where you're getting a new roof or some major systems in the house. I will say these programs, while they're very needed, and we're looking at ways that we can support home repair with our federal dollars. You know, we had ARPA the last couple of years, and we were able to do a whole lot of home repair. You'll see that in the next slide. But we're looking at how we can supplement some of this home repair. But I will say these programs are more challenging. People are living in the homes. We have to go through a screening application process. We have to request documentation. Then we have to kind of go through a back and forth on what we're able to fund. I don't want to say versus what people want, but we focus on the emergency and the major need. And so there's just a longer window than doing maybe a new construction project where it's the site, it's no people involved, at least on the front end. So there's a little bit longer lead time, I guess is what I'm trying to get at within all of our home repair programs. Affordable housing, this is, like I said, we're talking about rehab of usually unoccupied structures or new construction of a structure. In FY25, the staff and team, of course, many others in our community were able to do 353 housing units. We have an additional 300 in the pipeline to be completed, between the balance of 2025 through 2026 with the grants that we have funded. And this accounts for about, $11 million, $11.7 million of funding. Once again, the operating side is paying for the staffing. The funds are either federal, they may be trust fund money, and then maybe a little bit of home repair ARPA that we were granting out. I think just a handful more slides here. So the homelessness initiative, the city through HCD receives what's called emergency solutions grants from the federal government. Those staff members and some homelessness services are provided through the operating dollars here. And so last year we were able to support 87 families. A family is one adult, one child, and then 210 individuals through various homelessness support programs. That could be supportive services, rapid rehousing, street outreach, just a number of things. And then the numbers at the bottom are just our federal totals and what the direct funds actually were. Let's see. Our priority, especially from the operating side, staffing. So we do a lot of really great work. And as y'all know, it doesn't happen without the people to answer the phone, to, update websites, to go through the program and all those things. And so personnel and having adequate staffing or adequate funding for our personnel staff is just key to our whole operation. And then the next slide, we talk specifically about any budget changes. So our budget is a little bit reduced. It's essentially flat, but it's reduced a little bit from FY25. And this is showing here where we reduced the budget in materials and supplies by about $15,000. And overall, our total budget is about $44,000 less. Not a lot, but it is at least on trend and doing what we have been tasked to do, keeping our budget flat and still providing services. I think this might be the last. No, there's one more slide. This is just what I was kind of mentioning earlier in the presentation, a snapshot of year over year, how we've been trending in our major categories, in our down payment assistance and affordable housing units and home repair. We intend, as we go forward, to marry this with our key performance indicators, which you see there: response time, service delivery, efficiency gains. And my thought, response time is from the time a project is awarded or an application is approved, what's our time in actually delivering service? We want to make sure we're being responsive to customers, so that's something that we can track. And then efficiency will, going forward, be able to track it month over month. But right now we're just starting with the baseline of knowing what we did the prior years. And then I believe this is the last slide. What are our challenges and lists? So we have a flat budget. We are able to perform the functions that we have performed in the prior years. Essentially, with any additional changes, we may be limited in the ability to support down payment assistance, middle income housing, which we actually just started a couple of programs this prior year to support that 81 to 120%. A lot of those people, they don't meet the qualifications for assistance, but they're still right there needing a little bit to make sure they meet their rent or their mortgage and their other income. And then I mentioned down payment assistance already. That's a huge, just a huge opportunity for first-time home buyers who typically, they don't have $10,000 or $20,000 saved up to enter into a house, but they have more than enough to pay a mortgage over time. And so it's really, I think, a lifeline to make sure that we're increasing home ownership in our community. With that, that is our presentation. We're happy to respond to any questions or to clarify any information I would like to hear. Thank you.
Thank you. Let the record reflect that I have Councilmembers Cooper Sutton, Spinoza, White, Walker, and Logan here as well. I've got Councilwoman Logan in the queue, but I want to ask a couple, or say a couple quick things about your division for the just in general, and then I've got a couple quick questions. Hopefully they're quick. One, HCD is unique in that it is a massive organization that does a lot of work, but it looks tiny on the city's general fund because of all the matching and federal programs. So I'll say this again to the public and to any colleague. The best thing that I have found for understanding how HCD does work is to go to the annual review and start to look at how, from a paper standpoint, is to look at how all the federal funds are coming in the back. It lists it lists all those items out. And then I would go sit down with Director Cash and her team. I had her former, I guess he's the mayor now, sat down with him, but to walk through those, because without that, it's really hard to understand the work that they do, and we could spend a few days talking about it easily. So I would encourage you to do that as you start to understand just kind of the breadth of what they're doing. To the technical, slide 3, you mentioned hiring freezes. Yeah. So it's not that many positions, but I just didn't fully understand. So for this fiscal year, you're showing 14 open, but you're really only marketing 3-ish?
No, we have, so there are, I would say there's probably 8 total across our departments. We've got about 5 departments. Some of those, like we had an administrator position, somebody, they promoted up to that position, so that left a vacancy, and then there was another position with a vacancy.
Okay.
And then there's some others that we're ready. So I would say about 8 of those are ready to go. Some others we are, as we typically do, looking at modifying some of the language around the position to make sure that the positions that we are requesting are aligning with the need that we have.
Your division is a lot, as you said, a lot of administrative work. Obviously, AI has become the buzzword of the season for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
My curiosity for you is, as you start to look at strategic planning, not necessarily for this fiscal year, how the city can look at opportunities, because I recognize that there's a lot of human-to-human touch point, especially with our population base that are applying for these programs, where AI might not be the best interface, much like we discussed yesterday, kind of on the comm side with non-emergency for police. Speaking to somebody having a baby would be, necessary to have a person. Wouldn't want to talk to, wouldn't want to talk to Siri for that. But you're in a unique position. But I do recognize, having spent time here, that we can't do things traditionally that tech-wise as other cities may want to do them or roll them out. But I just hope that that's something that you're thinking about, because you are so administrative heavy. But I recognize that that's a lot of what you do. Yeah. And so nobody be scared for their job. But
and I say, that's a great point. And so we're trying to balance one of our programs that receives a lot of phone calls. We're looking at I didn't think of it as AI, but it is kind of like an AI call center where you go through, it's automated, and it'll help us get through the calls. But then the other side is nobody wants to talk to the robot. You know, everybody wants to talk to people, especially
Representative.
seniors.
Representative.
Hit 0. So we're
Yeah.
that's really great point and something for us
Yeah.
to think about with some of the, some of our positions and how you balance.
Right, it's their
the
opportunity
consumer
cost
needs.
because there are people that have complicated problems or
Mm-hmm.
they actually need a person. So yeah, I love that. All right, mine actually are just requests, they're not questions.
Okay.
I'm gonna get Regala. So on slide 6, down payment assistant, I just would love to see the average award amount. And I think you basically are, the average award amount, I would love if your division's not tracking it for Innovate or performance management. I would love to know what the average housing value or the housing values of the awards were. I'm curious to know what we're pairing at. Like, what are we actually supporting in the DPA? And then lastly, I would like to know where the houses are geographically located. I'm curious to know if we can start to get a trend analysis to see what's happening. Because I want to know where home buyers are buying in that income class. Meaning, where is the elasticity, if any, in the market? That may drive other decisions you make. That may drive other decisions United Housing may make. So I'm curious and look, it's a small set. It's 87, but I'm curious to know where they are. And here's the deal: if we start tracking it now, since and you start building it up, even if it's small amounts over a few years, maybe that is the data set that you get is like this is small. Like our administrative costs to administer this program have now exceeded the benefit of the program to the taxpayer, right? So those are some of the things that I think we need to look at. And then lastly is the same thing on 9. And you've sent me this before, Ashley. Basically, I call it an exact summary abstract of the awards and the project amounts. And just their general locations. Some of them I'll drive, but I know most of them are Peachtree, the Burroughs project over by FedEx Forum. But I'd like to see that because one of the things to wrap my comments up that's so astonishingly hard and difficult when you go through the math is you see a number like $1 million for repairs and you're like, good Lord, that's just got to be a slush fund. And you realize it's $25,000 a house and something you didn't say that I'll say for you that I learned is that a lot of these houses they will go into for a $1,000 repair or a $5,000 repair. But once we're in it, we have a liability to it. And as you can imagine, they find things and then all of a sudden that escalates into a skyrocketing price in order to make it actually safe and habitable. So when she said it's difficult and they're living there, that's like the understatement of a century in general for that program. So if I could get that information from you, and then that's it for me. Councilwoman Logan White and then Cooper Sutton. So Councilwoman Logan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your presentation. My question is, where are you seeing the service spikes, the request for service spikes, homelessness, middle income, senior housing, opportunity youth, aging out of foster care? What exactly?
That's a great question. I would say in the home repair category, we see.
I didn't even mention that.
You did,
well, but okay, home repair.
Yeah, that's
so
where
would that be classified as housing?
Housing, yeah, that would be in our housing service center, kind of under the if you're looking at the service centers now. But that's really where we see the most increase, and we have the biggest challenge or gap in funding availability for those types of projects. And it is exactly what Councilman Carlisle said, where we'll go in and $25,000 is a lot of money, but some of these homes are $40,000, need $40,000 worth of repair, or $60,000, and then you're having a conversation. Well, what is the house worth, and do we make these types of investments when we might be able to put $10,000 in this home? And so it's a challenge, but I would say that's really. That's one of the largest areas. I would say if you come in second to that, it's our homelessness population.
Yeah.
So a lot of people get stuck isn't the best word, but they may be living in some temporary shelter, maybe a hotel, but there's not a unit that they can afford to get them out of that hotel. And so therefore the person who might be on the street or really, living in their car, they can't get into the hotel. And so we really have to, and we've got some thoughts and ideas, but we really have to figure out how we can bolster the funds that we receive from the federal government for homelessness and special needs activity to try to fill some of those gaps at the local level. It is not because it's this is primarily operating. So that would be, so we don't have any additional, we do have funds for, I think, community lines for the homeless, because they're our continuum of care partner for the city. And we have funds for MIFA specific to homelessness, but we don't have direct service money, any additional direct service money for that in this operating budget.
And last question, when you say, you mentioned home repair for people trying to get in a home?
It would be for people who are already living in a home, in an occupied home. They usually been there 20, 30 years. They've been there longer than the systems. You typically replace all your systems at 20, between 15 for smaller stuff, dishwasher, fridge, that kind of stuff, up to 30 years for like your roof, your HVAC, your major systems. And typically what we've seen is people have not been able to make those small repairs along the way. So you got a big bill at the end that not many people can afford.
And if they don't afford it, they
just live there in sub-decent conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, just to add, I mean, it's likely no debt, meaning they're not required to have insurance. I mean, like it's a bad situation.
I was asking, based on what you're experiencing, are we funding and are we getting federal dollars in the right buckets to help the people in Memphis?
I think we are, and we actually had a good meeting sometime last week around on the homelessness side. Okay, if the feds can do this, what else can we do? Still with federal money, but what else, how else can we
leverage
supplant?
it?
Yeah, and then the same thing with home repair. We'll hopefully have some exciting home repair news in the next 3 months. We're trying to roll something out July, August, before the summer ends, just on how we can be more proactive on home repair.
Okay, thank you.
Great questions. Councilwoman White.
Thank you, Chairman. And this may be a conversation we may have to just have offline, but I wanted to know, in terms of the budget that we have before us, what your thoughts are in terms of potential, because I know a large part of your funding does come from federal government. Are there any anticipations in cuts in terms of federal funding, and does this budget at all take into consideration any potential programs that you think may be cut?
Yeah, I would say, so this operating budget does not. It is I don't want to say purely staffing, but it is about half staff, materials, and then some direct service grants. So there are always concerns about, the federal government cutting our funds. We are waiting, hopefully in the next week or so, we should understand what our entitlements will be for the next fiscal year. I think the benefit, the positive thing, is we have 6 years to spend CDBG money. So we do have some funds available now that we can not necessarily reprogram, but make sure that if that budget is indeed cut, that we might be able to supplement so that we don't see any decrease in activity. However, if we do get a budget that's considerably less next, for this year, so we would get it in the next couple of weeks to be deployed over the next 6 years. If it's considerably less, we will come back and have that conversation with the administration, with the council, to say, hey, it really looks like these types of services are no longer supported by whatever that funding source is, and just start to think about how we might be able to, and if we want to, how we might be able to address those issues. But the short term, I would say we do have funds available to withstand any drastic changes in the short term.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Cooper Sutton.
Thank you, Chair. Glad to see you, Ashley, and your assistant, who I had the pleasure of meeting when we were doing our speed dating. Right. And thank you for your opportunities that I see that I was going to ask about, but I see that there are opportunities and you're able to identify where funds may be reallocated for projects or emerging needs for projects. And I think I discussed a project that is very, very needed.
The rent.
Yeah. And I get so many calls and emails, and in his absence, which is Councilman Ford, Senior, he as well, and I think we've talked about that, how that need is such a huge and enormous need, but I see that in your opportunity. I hope that that is one of the projects that you can reallocate some funds, and we can kind of service our seniors and our disabled to make it where they can be able to be more mobile, with that with that project.
Yes.
So are we looking into that? Are we kind of reallocating some funds
Yes.
to try to set that aside?
So very great points. And we had years ago a program that was focused on just accessibility modifications. I don't know what happened over time.
Yes.
It kind of got absorbed, but a huge need, and that would be part of that. It's not truly a repair, but that's part of that kind of discussion I was just mentioning. Hopefully in the next couple of months, we'll be able to roll something out, but we are including ramps, grab bars. I know a lot of times people need wider doorway frames so that a wheelchair, or if you're on a walker, you can get through. But all of that, we hope to be able to make resources available in the community, like say in the July, August, around home repair, but also those accessibility modifications.
Okay. And with your losses that you talked about, were you able to kind of balance that and align that up with some of your losses that you discussed?
So we haven't seen any losses yet. We haven't received funding. We've been getting notices and memos around what may be cut or what's on the block.
Right.
But until we have our numbers, we are optimistic and we are hopeful that they'll at least remain around the same, because CDBG and ESG, the programs that we administer, are entitlements. They've been around for decades, and usually, you have a lot of support. And so, but we don't have any, to answer your question, we have not seen any losses yet, but if we do, then we will be able to, as you say, reallocate, reprogram. We're looking at next year anyways, and so that'll just be a place to say, okay, instead of this new initiatives that sounds exciting, let's support our more flagship programs if they are decreased.
Okay. And how are you addressing any issues with expenditures and revenue collections? Are you kind of maintaining your financial in a good stability place right now?
We do. Star and her team provide monthly, essentially monthly reports, how we're spending, programs that may not be spending it where they should be, or programs that look like, okay, we're going to do 5,000, now we're at 11,000. What are y'all doing? So she does a good job of keeping us on track on a monthly basis. And we're keeping things within our expenses. We are limiting our, external things going out if it's not necessary, mandatory. Then we're not doing a lot of that on like the material side. We're really trying to keep our team on a tight budget, in still a healthy workplace, still being able to function, but keep them on a tight budget so that we don't have those expenditures that we aren't expecting.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other members? All right. Thank you. Wish you guys the best. We head into the old summer season. I'm sure you'll get a few phone calls about some HVAC units. Should be a good time. All right. Thank you, Director Cash. We are going to recess out for 5 minutes so that the city attorney's office can get set up, and we'll come back in. We're in recess.
level budget, 2 legal levels, one that is self-funded, so our city attorney's level, Metro Alarm Office. We have our administration claims where we handle pre-litigation claims, risk management that handles the insurance for all our buildings and risk issues insurance on our contracts, delinquent collections relating to outstanding taxes, tax sales, where we work with the treasurer's office, permits office that issues event permits, and the ethics office that works with the ethics board. We have the chief ethics officer who's part of our office as well. She's a city employee. So if you're looking at our budget overview, they're probably going to look a little bit different than it looked last year. Our priorities are expansive blight litigation. We've really ramped up the blight litigation strategy, far more aggressive than it's been in the past. We filed hundreds of lawsuits against blighted properties. We closed down Serenity Towers. We hired outside counsel, Carlissa Shaw, who's been appointed the chair of the mayor's environmental team going forward, who's been incredible, done incredible work, made very quick work of some complicated matters. We're in the process of demolishing Somerset, which has been an eyesore for countless years at this point. Today there was a mass shooting at a club on Wednesday. Their team got an injunction against them to shut them down today, 6 days later. So that's the pace that we're trying to move at with the blight litigation going forward. So that is definitely a key budget strategy, a key budget priority. We'll bring in internally another experienced blight attorney to manage internal sort of our blight prosecutors and manage that process. So we'll have internal and external counsel and eventually a lawyer assigned to each district to handle the blight in that district, and that's the goal. For strategic litigation and mitigation, it's essentially changing the way we litigate and think about city cases. Been more of a relaxed approach, bringing more of a law firm approach to the city, very aggressive, very quick, very efficient. And so we're sort of laying out those expectations and finding a way to fit those into the budget currently. With respect to compliance and contract efficiency, looking at sort of the way contracts are handled citywide within the divisions, looking at what we deem to be sort of risk, sort of some soft spots, areas of opportunity that we've identified, reminding everyone of, who the contracting authority is and trying to fill in the gaps where appropriate to the extent we can, and, sort of increasing our aggressiveness in that regard as well. With respect to technology, we are currently working with IT to centralize our legals records on sort of a cloud-based solution that we're looking at now. So that's big for us. And personnel and staffing, we ramped up. We got, you all expanded our complement with respect to support staff. So we have I think we have a good, healthy number of legal assistants, a great paralegal that we recently brought on. We still need more people in claims because our claims are constantly ramping up and they're increasing in complexity. So that's a key budget priority also, is getting the staff we need so that we can make quick work efficiently of all the matters that we handle. Looking at our budget, our proposed budget, there's not much of a change. The slight increase you see in personnel expenses relates to increases that were made with the additional employees that we added to our complement, the legal assistants, to ensure our lawyers have sufficient staff support. The biggest change you will see is in materials and supplies, which reflects, prior to this year, all of the money for lawsuits and claims were allocated to each division based on sort of prior year look-back numbers. All of that money was taken from those divisions, and it's sort of been collapsed into our division.
So to reiterate that, because I think that's just, I want to reiterate that key point because it is the big delta. So
right.
I'm going to state it and just make sure I get this right. Prior to this fiscal year, we had risk was always under legal from a structure standpoint, but the way that we booked it from an accounting standpoint was each division carried their exposure or a share of their exposure in their their division and or legal level.
Right.
And now we have consolidated that into one group, all under legal's budget from an accounting standpoint, and that is what Chief Gibson is saying is the major shift.
Yeah.
So I just want to, mainly for everybody under the sun, including the record, that's the shift in the $9 million. All right, thank you, Chief.
Absolutely. No capital expenditures anticipated. Grants and subsidies will stay the same. That's the funding we provide to the law school for the Neighborhood Preservation Act clinic, where students are given the opportunity and work with lawyers to also work on cases involving blighted properties. Service charges, you won't see a change there. Ultimately, our budget's proposed budget's $31 million, which is staying flat technically. We're just absorbing those other divisions lines for lawsuits and claims. With respect to our complement, we're pretty full. We have a couple of attorney spots that appear vacant. One will be filled August 1st by the lawyer who's going to come in and internally manage blight to work in tandem with Carlissa as our external counsel. And so we have one spot open that we're going to post when someone just tendered their resignation. So it's only been open it's not even open yet because they're still technically at work. So we'll post that position shortly. If anything, we probably need a few more people, but we'll get to that later on. All right, so the key budget drivers for us, again, increasing staffing needs, primarily public records and claims, just because they're ramping up. The expansion of the blight litigation, part of that is expanding our administrative process to keep more matters out of environmental court and handle them administratively. We're looking at what the cost of that would be so that we can move more efficiently in that regard. And sort of, a lot of these matters hang around a long time, and we're trying to find strategies to work around that, and the centralization of funds that we just discussed. With respect to the budget, the neutrality of it, the personnel line, again, accounts for, we increased salaries a bit and hired new people. And the new blight litigation attorneys, you see an increased expense there also. With respect to, I'm happy to say, we've seen pretty positive movement and growth in almost every area. We're clearing more claims, and the numbers on the next slide, far more rapidly than we did in the past. We had a huge backlog we've cleared. We still have about 500 claims outstanding because we get them every day, but they're not old. They're not 2-3 years old like they were when I got here. Public Records Act request, when I got here, we had about 1,200 outstanding. We have about 170 now. We hired outside counsel, an additional person. We put a lot of things in place to try to get through that backlog. But it continues to be a challenge because the requests are increasingly complex. If we get a request for emails over the last 5 years and there's 5,000 emails, someone has to look at every single one of them. With respect to the clearance of contracts, I think we're constantly looking for process improvements to clear them as quickly as possible. So we turn them around relatively quickly now. And with respect to purchasing and procurement, looking at compliance in that regard, with respect to our office, ensuring that we're being compliant within the divisions with the purchasing and procurement policies when the contracts get to us. And so just to kind of hit on some of the numbers with respect to the claims are filed constantly. There were 908 claims filed, but we closed 1,177, so we're starting to outpace ourselves. And right now we have ultimately 487 open claims. Same with public records. Our total open public records requests, 178 down. We had a ton plus 1,200, but we average almost 5,000 per year. It's just when this report was done, it was 3,650 that we gotten, and we have 2 internal people. And we have a lawyer who's going to help us. We have a lot of outside help to get through those. Ultimately, our biggest challenge is the rapidly shifting legal landscape that I think we see on the news every day. The rules change almost daily now. And so trying to keep up with that, we have lawyers who are constantly monitoring, executive orders, legislation, state, federal. It's become a constant. They're on calls with other municipal lawyers to make sure we're staying compliant. I'll talk to the Attorney General. This is a constant process. It's just we're sort of on a hamster wheel at this point to try to make sure that the city of Memphis stays compliant in every conceivable regard to the extent we can. With respect to, again, the increasing number of public records requests, and we want to answer, we want to respond to them. And so that's, a challenge. With respect to risk mitigation, it's a challenge. There are a lot of practices in place, And so we're just trying to think of more innovative ways to address some of the challenges that we see within the division from our perspective, trying to mitigate risk in a way that other non-lawyers might not see, because we see risk in everything, I think. And recruiting is particularly challenging because first-year lawyers come out, brand new baby lawyers who practice one day will come to out to a law firm now making $175,000 a year. So it's very difficult in Memphis, not Nashville. Nashville, they're in the twos. And so it's very difficult for us to recruit real talent. We have to find very talented lawyers who are also very passionate and don't mind not taking that money. And so we've done, I think, a pretty good job of increasing salaries, but we're definitely not anywhere near competitive. And so that's a challenge. So we're trying to think of ways to make our office more, a place that you want to come work. Yeah, a place to, a place you want to work, as opposed to focusing on money. But we're trying to get there. We're trying to slowly tick up to at least be something to put, at least be an office where talented lawyers would consider coming to work. Also, so that's it for the city attorney level. Next, we have the Metro Alarm Fund, which is fully self-funded, self-sustaining. Our manager's great back there. Ultimately, they support MPD and fire and reducing the number of false alarms. They're responsible for collecting the fees. They do a lot of groundwork and generate funds from false alarm fees, false alarm fees annual, and when you have a false alarm. And it's hard work collecting out those funds. No one wants to pay that. So it's hard work, and I think it's impressive that they're able to collect $2 million a year that way. And that money goes directly to the benefit of MPD and fire. And right now, I think the most recent resolution assigns it to the Fleet Reserve Fund for fire and MPD. And they actually pay their own salaries. Total revenue generation, no hit to the budget. So,
do you know who created the Metro Alarm Fund?
Councilman Spinoza.
I know. Look, I mean, I just. Yeah. Look, I think it's important. I think it's great to have you back in the seat. And I think it's only for many reasons, but specifically, it's awesome to see an initiative. But it's awesome to see an initiative that was led by a council member that's self-sustaining, that's not only self-sustaining, but it's really accretive, both direct and hard dollars, but in what Chief Gibson said, which is the opportunity cost of what it does to alleviate the pressure, kind of like HCD was talking about. So anyway, I just have to acknowledge that. I mean, it's incredible stuff to get to see and something to be very proud of. And thank you for bringing that. Really appreciate it, Councilman. All right, Chief Gibson, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I had to say that. I mean, I just mainly because we've all had ideas over 5 years, and you get dusted off, or it doesn't work, or you put it in place and then it kind of gets dusted off, thrown to the wayside. So it's really nice to see one, like Councilman Spinoza said, his colleagues support him, the administration put it into play, Mr. O'Malley and his team execute on it, and the city benefit from it. I mean, that's what it's all about right there. It's awesome, man. Awesome. Well, thank you, Councilman. Anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to say that. Thank you, Chief Gibson. Please.
Absolutely. That was the end of our presentation. They're relatively simple. Your timing was perfect.
All right. I've got Thank you, Chief. I've got Councilman Walker in the queue, and then when he makes his way up here, Councilman Smiley. And please let the record show that we've got Councilman Warren and Vice Chair Swearingen, Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I remember Chief Davis mentioning yesterday about the litigation moving over, and I know you spoke to it last week. I do think it's a great idea, and if you could just comment briefly on how we will benefit from that and any gaps that will be filled as a result thereof.
Sure. With us being the entity that litigates the claims or handles the claims, and Ms. Gibson's department back there, we know in real time what's occurring. So that while we get valuable information from the divisions, we have some sense of, where we stand sort of as a total. The other divisions don't have the benefit of that. They only see sort of a very narrow view, like, well, I have $1 million in claims and I might want to do X or I might not. From our perspective, it's like, this is where we are. We're trying to reduce our risk by X. We're trying to reduce our exposure by Y. And so from that, we'll be constantly considering those factors as we make settlement decisions. It takes it away from this, you know, the divisions might feel like they don't want to pay the money, you know, they might have some ownership or might feel like it's not the best use of the funds. And so it's just sort of mitigating some of that because we know where the risk lies. And so it's like, I might pay X today, so we won't pay X times 10 5 years from now. And so you'll benefit from it in that way. And it'll just, you know, we'll be able to track it better in real time that way.
Okay, thank you for that. And then you were saying that you all still need some more staff to help with the claims, file the claims. Was that 3 people?
But right now we have our claims agent. These are for the pre-litigation claims. We get so many, every pothole claim, every car wreck. I mean, we get so many claims. And we have a claims agent and 3 claims analysts. Well, some of the claims are very complex in that there might be a bodily injury claim and they have to look at medical records, analyzing bills and things like that. So 3 people, right now they have 150 plus claims per person, and they're still clearing them out relatively quickly. But it's just the 4th person would give them a reasonable number. It's just not a reasonable number of claims for them to have right now. And we'll never actually catch up if we don't have a 4th person.
Okay, thank you. I yield the floor.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I've got Councilman Smiley, Warren, and Cooper Sutton.
Thank you, Chairman. Chief, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you, Councilman?
I'm doing well. Question. So I think, I'm not sure if you were here. I think you were here. I'm not sure. But usually when we get the presentations from the legal division, there's like a breakdown of outside counsel and outside counsel spend. Do we have that?
Since it was in Daily Memphis.
You just said their name now.
I know.
Don't invoke them up.
I can get it. I can get it relatively.
I just want to see it whenever you can. Can you email it to us?
I'll email it to you.
All right, that's all I wanted. Good job. I enjoy having you in this role.
I enjoy working with you.
Thank you, Councilman. And I'd love to see that as well. I'd be curious to see that. I've got Councilman Warren, Dr. Warren.
Thank you. Part of my question was answered by Councilwoman Walker's question, but I want to know what is the interplay back and forth between the divisions about this so they learn from what the risks are. I take it you do an educational component as you take it over. That's what you're talking about when I don't want to pay 10 times this in 10 years, so we're going to pay this now even though you don't want to.
Well, right. I think that the lawyers we're not attached to it. We're not attached to the circumstances, and so we can very rigidly make these decisions and help the division leaders sort of understand why you might feel this way today, just like we would do with any other client. But the risk is X. And so we do have those conversations trying to explain, because they're not always happy with our decisions. They're not.
So I'm looking at your budget, and, you know, I saw that, you know, we've gone up, 10 million or whatever this year. I recall hearing this same thing about Jennifer Sink saying she was taking more stuff into the department. Has this been a multi-year thing going on where the department's been taking more risk? Or been moving some of the thing into their department? Because if you look at the numbers, you can see they've grown sort of exponentially. I guess slide number 4, you can see it went from 8 to 15,000 in 2 years or 4 years. So I thought some of that was them bringing more of that into their department.
I think that what we brought is the insurance. Like the divisions no longer pay for their own insurance.
So you brought insurance in,
right.
but not the total risk.
Right.
Okay, so that's helping me with that. And the other thing is, as we're looking at this blight mitigation, are we looking at moving things that we have to try into Chancery Court?
Yes. We're looking at
how many of those have we gotten into Chancery Court right now?
We haven't yet. It's started with a conversation because while they have concurrent jurisdiction, it's not. We don't want to just toss a bunch of cases in the Chancery that have never been there before. So it's been a conversation with the judges about how that would look and what the process would look like. And so we haven't done it yet, but
How far down the road are you?
Summer, not far.
That's really good. I think that is going to do more to help our roadblock than anything else you can come up with.
Well, the administrative process that we have Carlissa and Director Neal and Steve Barlow working on, I think will help also because we can handle a lot of matters internally that never have to get to court. And so I think we're really.
And we have not had that infrastructure to this day, right?
We had it for condemnation matters, but that's it. For nothing else.
And now this is going to be for blight.
Yes.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Warren. Councilwoman Cooper Sutton.
Thank you, Chair. Kudos and shout out for your hard work that you've done.
Thank you so
in this
much.
administration. And thank you for always making yourself available whenever I have questions I do not understand and you
Absolutely.
simplify it. Thank you for Carlisa and Director Neal for the blight. I had to ask Janique, I couldn't remember her name, Councilwoman White, but thank you for that effort in the blight. But I have a question because I did not know that under your leadership in the city attorney that the ethics office, could you tell me a little bit about what that is and what they do? And is it a board, volunteer? Could you kind of explain that?
Sure. So we have the chief ethics officer, just one employee, though she probably needs a second employee also, but we'll cross that bridge. Well, right now we have a lawyer assigned, city employee, and so whenever ethics complaints are filed or whenever an opinion is requested, it's her job to write the ethics opinion. She sort of is oversight over the ethics ordinance. If she writes an opinion and there's a challenge that has to go to a hearing, then the ethics board, which each of you has assigns a member or picks a member of the ethics board by district. The ethics board will meet sort of like a judicial body. The chair is a judge, former judge, sort of judicial body and adjudicate the ethics issue. Okay. But she will make a recommendation based on her review.
So she's solo right now?
She is, and that's an area of opportunity for expansion also.
Okay. And if a constituent needs to contact her, how would they do that?
I can give you her information.
It's
online, but I will give it to you. Y'all can send it to you.
Okay. And how often does this person, is it volunteer? How often does she work?
No, she's an employee.
She works every day?
She works, well, she's part-time.
Part-time, that's
she's
what
a
I need to know.
part-time
Okay.
city attorney.
All right. And I'll get the rest of my stuff offline with you.
Okay.
I appreciate you. Thank
No
you.
problem. Thank you.
I yield, Chair.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Great questions. We will also get you the it's an ethics ordinance, right? The ordinance dictate. Yeah, there's an ordinance that will get your office. Yeah, Councilwoman White is in the queue.
Thank you, Chairman. Is there a place, and I don't have to have it today, but is there a way for us to see how much we pay out in claims going back, like maybe for like 5 years or so? Just kind of seeing that claims trend.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Our claims agent, Tamika Gibson back there, is amazing. She'll probably have it for you before we walk out of here good. And so, yeah, absolutely, there's no problem.
The other thing that I would like to see, if I could have a breakout, is, and I don't know if you all have this ability to break it out in terms of, I would like to see the general claims, but claims related maybe to personal injury, maybe accidents, and then I would like to see a breakout of
Potholes.
potholes.
Most of those are denied, FYI, but yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
We're self-insured, which is a huge, I think both, well, we're not self-insured in many areas. We're self-insured in healthcare. I think we have stop loss now, or a version of stop loss, right? Or what I would call stop loss. No. Well, that's what makes
With respect to that level of risk, personal injury, potholes, we're 100% self-insured.
Self-insured. Okay, that's what I wanted to get out there. And so what's critical that I love that is a practice in having it under one place and why those administrators are so key is you have to, when you typically have an administrator, or even if you were self-insured, you have to file every claim to give notice in order to, there's multiple, anyway, it's just the best practice. And I'm so happy that is one of the things that we do and do well here because it's so important and it can come back and haunt you in a devastating way. So I really appreciate the emphasis that your office has put on that. And I also appreciate your comment that the ethics office is well-chosen, judicious words of an area of opportunity. It's something we got into when I first got on the council. So I agree. I agree with that. Councilwoman Cooper Sutton, did you have another? Yes, ma'am. Please.
Why we can't? It's like.
So I know.
Been there, done that.
As a human, I understand. But so Tennessee law is Tennessee law. It's not a policy.
Gotcha.
We have to have notice. We're entitled to notice before we pay out a claim. And so if we don't have notice, if no one's reported it, we didn't have an opportunity to fix it. So we're not negligent at that point. And so we have to be negligent before we pay the claim. So if we know it's there, we don't feel it, you hit it, then we pay for your damages. If we don't know it's there, no one reports it, then we didn't have an opportunity to fix it.
So we shouldn't be reporting them?
I would not say that.
Hang tight, yeah. Hang tight, Council.
Okay, so they need to be reported when they see them instead of emailing us. Report them where they are. You know, when you get them,
And you
and
can
they
call
may have a
311
chance.
and report.
All right, I'm just gonna start riding around because I lost my case.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you, Chairman. That's
Sounds like
okay.
we've all taken an L there.
Yes, I think we have taken it.
If it makes you feel better.
Yeah,
It's so
right.
important.
Well, thank you for all the work that your office is doing. I know that you're incredibly busy. I know there's a lot going on. An understatement to say that the legal and business and political landscape is shifting rapidly.
Right.
I would say it's highly kinetic.
It is.
And that's an incredibly difficult position to be when you're either in the business environment or you're advising the business or government environment on a changing basis. So I don't envy your job, but I'm very appreciative that you're in that job. So for what that is worth.
It's worth a lot. It means a lot. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Appreciate your presentation, and we'll see you guys around wrap up. With that, we're going to recess out for General Service is going to take it. Let's recess out for 15 minutes. Or 14 minutes. Let's come back, or I'm going to call it 15. Let's come back at 3:20, and we're going to go General Services Fleet, and then we'll kind of see how everybody's doing. And then we've got the proposed new division of Community Enhancement after that. So we'll see everybody at 3:20. right, everybody, if you'll start making your way to your seats. It is 3:21, and I am calling the Budget Committee of the Memphis City Council back into order. We have general session, or general services rather, general fund, a presentation, and then the fleet fund. And then after that, we will have the proposed new division of community enhancement. But to the main order, welcome, welcome. Director Jameson, the floor is yours.
Thank you, thank you. All right, so good evening, council. Okay. All right. Good evening, Council. Melvin Jameson, General Service, 125 North Main Street. Thank you for the opportunity to present the FY26 General Service budget request. I'm joined today by our senior management team, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Good afternoon, Elisa Rankin, Finance Director.
Lead Administrator.
Gerald Spencer, Senior Administrator, Property and Grounds Maintenance.
Thank you. All right, we'll jump right into it. Page 2. Page 2 is our organizational chart at the legal level for general services, and is made up of the administration, general service support services who handle our financial functions, and our HRBP team. Under the facility maintenance, that's our property maintenance and building maintenance team, who handle properties, repairs for building systems, and grounds maintenance upkeep for city buildings and vacant lots, as well as Bass Pro, which is repairs that we make at the pyramid, and the Operations City Hall department here, who operate and maintain City Hall building, Public Safety building, and MC2 building, which is the old Coke complex on 499 Hollywood. Real Estate Department, which manages all our real property transactions. And of course, the fleet personnel is funded through the general fund. And then the fleet fund and those departments that make up the fleet fund. Go to page 3. Page 3 is the division authorized complement, and we have an authorized complement of 302 employees, 275 full-time employees, and 27 part-time. At this point, we have 25 current vacancies in the department. Go to page 4. Page 4, budget overview here. So we have our 3 key priorities. And on the essential operations, we're going to maintain fleet, maintain buildings and fleet, support emergency responders, oversee real property transaction, execute on capital improvement programs by making repairs to deferred maintenance and major modifications, and make technological enhancements by installing building automation systems on mechanical systems when we can. Given a flat budget and these ongoing inflationary pressures, which are year-over-year increases in cost from vendors and from from our suppliers for materials and supplies and the services they perform for us, we have had to add the operational adjustments so that we can sustain services throughout a 12-month period. Some of those operational adjustments are cost sharing with other divisions. We cost share with other divisions. We partner up with them and to get them to help fund some of the cost of the unplanned expense and repairs. We also do this with some managed properties. Some of the things that will affect us in this operational adjustment will be longer wait times for non-emergency work orders. And we do this because we ourselves try to use more in-house employees to do the work versus spending additional funds on external vendors. We will reassign the dedicated maintenance teams at the zoo this year in order to try to meet more repair demands citywide. Breakdown of our spending is our pie chart here shows in personnel we have 63.87% and in materials and supply of the operational budget 36.13%. Go to page 5. Historical budget comparison. All right, so historical budget comparison, we are showing here that an adopted FY25 adopted budget is going to stay flat for the FY26 proposed budget. I'll point out one thing here on the materials and supplies from FY21 to the FY26 proposed. We've only had one true increase, and that was in FY24 budget. Most of them have been right at about $9.9 million. Go to page 6. So page 6 through 10 or so are key budget drivers. So our key budget drivers are personnel costs, full-time salaries, overtime expense, of course. Materials and supplies have gone up year over year, and that has been a cost of driving our budget because everything we touch is tangible and we have to make repairs. Page 7. Personnel costs. Personnel costs is again 60% of our general service operational budget. Full-time salaries make up a lot of that. We require certified tradesmen and the right size staffing levels to meet the workload demands for the city of Memphis. And along with that, we have to have competitive pay to attract and to retain our technical tradesmen. An example of this will be we had 5 hard-to-fill positions, electricians. In those 5 we have an actual complement of 10, and we have 5 openings that have been over a year. When we cannot hire for those, this has an increased cost in overtime and an increased cost to external vendors. Overtime in fleet. So overtime in fleet, well, it's due to the aging fleet. The aging fleet is due to the vehicles being way out of life cycle, and we need to replace those. So this is causing a strain on our budgets as we have more frequent breakdowns, increased waiting times, reduced available units, higher repair costs to external vendors, and we have increased labor hours to keep essential units in service. Page 8. So page 8 here, under the materials and supplies section of our budget, we have under the property maintenance, rising costs and supply shortages. Point out that in FY24, our FY26 budget request is 82% of the FY24 actual that was spent. Inflationary pressures again and supply chain issues have driven costs up for materials and supplies. Professional service contractors are going up, leading to strain on our budgets, and our budgets are just not keeping pace with inflation and our spending trends. On the grounds maintenance, utility costs are rising from a rate increase and not keeping pace with our spending. Page 9. Page 9 is additional budget drivers on the materials and supplies. Here at Operations City Hall, utilities line was 73% of our 24 actuals. So, and we also had a rate height increase for ratepayers, as well as the pace of the budget is not keeping up with the spending that we're spending every year. Postage. We have, mailroom equipment and postage. First class mail will increase, and the purchase of the new mail process machine will be required. Mailroom first class, we process about 480,000 pieces annually, and the first class mail will increase from 69 cents to 73 cents in July. Certified mail, we process about 8,000 pieces a year, and we have already had a rate increase this year from $8.93 to $9.64. Equipment rentals, the copiers for the citywide copier contract. General Service maintains that contract, and we have 360 copiers. We are reducing that down to 320. And one of the problems that we have with that contract is color clicks, and we are putting in a cost control measure to include software that will allow us to control color copies. All right, page 10 is just a concise summary of the budget drivers. Page 11 is a notable mention of work that was completed here at City Hall by our teams, Property Maintenance and Operations City Hall, and that was the new mother's lactation room in the Hall of Mayors. Some of the things we did is we equipped it with a comfortable chair ottoman, vanity sink, refrigerator, microwave, changing tables, closed circuit TV. Looks real nice. Page 12. Page 12 is our performance matrix from the KPIs from FY21 to FY24. Shows the total number of work orders completed at property maintenance, number of real estate transactions completed, and revenue generated through surplus property tax with real estate. Page 13 and 14 are two new initiatives, and portable AC and generator units for $350,000 will enhance service continuity during equipment failures and extreme weather events, and the facility condition assessment for $120,000 for support for long-term strategic planning and maintenance prioritization of building systems. On the last page here are some challenges and risks of general services. Page 15. Any questions or comments?
All right, I've got Councilman Warren in the queue. Dr. Warren, and also colleagues, if we could keep your questions for Director Jameson right now specific to non-fleet items. I know overtime and there's some things that will cross over, so if I come over the microphone, don't get mad at me. I'm going to keep fleet to fleet when we get there in just a minute, for what that's worth. Dr. Warren, the floor is yours.
I guess my thing is I'm looking, it seems like over and over again, we're requesting less than we spent last year in our budget. And I'm just wondering how we get to the end of the year that way. Understand what you were saying when you were describing this. So you're keeping your budget flat, but you're already telling us you don't have enough money.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly right. So what we do is we have to utilize everything that we have. We have 25 open positions. So we have to reallocate those funds in order to support that M&S.
So you're using the 25 positions that are not filled. You're going to take that money. Is that going to make up the difference?
So
the answer is probably no. You're not going to make up that whole difference by not filling up. So you're still going to have your overtime.
Right.
And that's going to cost more.
Yes.
Okay, and we can't fill the positions because we're not paying enough. Is that what
in some cases, yes.
Okay, so I don't know. I hear your pain. Mm-hmm. I just want to know how we can work our way out of this, because I think it's unrealistic just to say we can't do this, because now's the time we set tax rates, and now's the time we have to do things to provide services. And if we're sitting here saying we're going to do the same amount of money, but we're not going to be able to provide the services people are expecting, that's not going to help us long term. You know, people are not getting their services. They're not going to want to stay in our town. They're not staying in our town, then they're not going to be paying taxes. We're going to be in a downward spiral. So I guess that's my issue, is I'd like you to come back and tell me also where, if we're going to pay for this, you know, how much it's going to cost, because we need to know how much it's going to cost. And you can't tell me 25 positions are going to take care of all this stuff that was there.
So also, we are using the cost sharing by reaching out to divisions.
So,
Director, could you speak into the mic? I'm having a hard time.
I'm
hearing
sorry.
this.
Cost sharing with divisions.
yeah, you bring it over to you.
Yeah.
Put it in front of you.
Okay.
It'll slide.
All right, sorry about that. All right, so cost sharing with divisions. That's for them to us to partner with them to let them know that, hey, we need some buy-in here to get this work done for you. So when you request work to be done at your facility,
So I understand the
we need to get
cross
that
sharing,
done.
but we're not seeing that on the document. So which division is it coming from? Is it showing up in their budget that they're showing to us, that they're cost sharing with you?
So
know?
we book those as, you'll see those in the budget, and every division has the expense recovery. And then you'll see it back, the offsetting in each division. But what I hear you asking for is and we can get with the administration, is to put together a list of by division on probably one sheeter, just a one pager, where Dr. Warren and the council can see all the services by division that you provide, and then what you charge those divisions, and they charge back. But here's the deal, just to give you, to help you out here, to the point, it's still one bucket of money. At the end of the day, it's one bucket of city money. So, you know.
And do we have enough of it to cover your expenses when you're going in the hole?
So cost sharing for the division is when we have a repair, and it may be in parks, it may be the Memphis Zoo, it may be the libraries. The cost sharing is not coming from, it's particularly coming from our professional services or materials and supplies. So if we can't cover that cost, what we've been doing is asking the other divisions to cover the cost.
I understand you're doing that. I get it. But I don't see how we can figure out what it is when we're looking at this budget.
Got it.
I mean,
Chief Adams.
Yeah, Antonio Adams, Chief Operating Officer, City of Memphis, 125 North Main. So you've heard a lot of what we can't do. Here's what we are doing. What we're doing is we're aggressively reallocating our CIP dollars, where if there is an item that actually can be expensed, can be covered through capital, then those items are taken care of through our CIP dollars. Every division has a cover line, and you've seen that. And what we are doing now is those nice to haves are now being reallocated to those must haves and deferred maintenance and or repair. You do see, if you go back to the personnel, the pie graph, a couple years back, you had a heavy personnel. Well, over the years through attrition, we've lost those employees, but what has happened is we've reallocated that back to materials and supplies. So there is a shared billing with respect to those particular divisions, one, aggressively with the capital, and it's in their cover line, and then, of course, General Services has its cover line as well.
Dr. Warren.
Again, as I'm looking at your budget and I see it's coming in negative, at the end of that budget, it would be nice to say, and this is how we're making it positive. We're getting this much from these guys, this much from these guys, this much from these guys, and that's how we're going to balance the budget. Because as it is, it's sort of a black hole that is coming in, but we don't know where it's budgeted to come in. And you can tell me, I can't tell you that because I don't know what's going to break down and what I'm going to have to repair, okay? But you can give an estimate from where you were last year to how you got to these numbers, and you make them seem like they're reasonable. So I guess that's my point.
I'll get with the division, and then we'll come back. To your point,
Does that make
Councilman
sense?
Warren, yes, to your point.
Because I don't want to sit
it's
here.
not predictive as to what's going to break down, but we can get you more money with respect to just the routine maintenance.
So I guess we look at routine maintenance, and then we look at what we had breakdown last year, and then I think we add on to it because we know it's going to cost more. We also know the fleet's not getting younger, so there's a percentage that has probably been growing every year. You can make a calculation based on that percentage of growth, and then you'll be able to say, okay, this is sort of where we see the hole is going to be, how big it's going to be, and where we're plugging it. And then that way, Mr. Jamerson doesn't come up here and look all warlorn in about 6 months wanting money and, us yelling at him and everything, and I don't want to have to do that. If that makes sense. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Warren. We've got Councilwoman Walker, Cooper Sutton, and Logan. Councilwoman Walker, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for this presentation. Who do we purchase our fuel from?
Mansfield Oil.
What does it sit under?
It's a fleet question. That's all right. Do you have follow-ups to that?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That was my only question.
Oh,
No
yeah,
follow-up.
let's just say it. You're here now. If you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself real quick, and we'll get it answered.
I'm Mayor Conner, I'm the fleet administrator. We get all of our oil from Mansfield Oil.
Mansfield?
Mansfield,
All
yes,
right.
sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
yield the floor.
Councilwoman Cooper Sutton.
Thank you. Your janitorial and your security contracts, I think you told me there were some issues. You showed that there were some issues trending with that. Would that have an issue with reflecting your increase? Because if it showed in the FY25, it didn't, will it reflect?
So with janitorial, one thing we're doing is we're going to reduce one staff members to get that number down within the funded amount.
Okay.
Same thing with security. So that will offset what we had was an increase from 24 to 25 in the contract that was bid out. So by reducing that number, that will get us closer to our funding budget. Now, that means that we are going to eliminate some of those services as well. So we will likely have, there won't be as much things like floor refurbishing in certain areas, and you will not have a day person from the vendor side. And there will be likely one reduction staff member on the security team.
Wow. Okay. And you talked about also your utilities are trending a little bit higher.
Yes.
And the facility usage is not considered as well as inflation or reported increase. So how are we handling that part? How are you going to address that with the utilities being increased and with the inflation?
Yeah. So utilities, basically what we do is we try to, effectively run the building as lean as we can. When I say that, basically what happens is on days when nobody is in the building, no equipment is going to operate. The chiller will not come on. We won't turn that chiller on. We won't turn the boiler on. That will help us to reduce that cost. We try not to spike that LGW charge daily, and then that helps us with our annual cost.
Okay. So now I'm going to another question. Your professional service and material and supplies. When we're looking at that, we know they're trending high in the aging of the material and the equipment. We know you've already stated you may have to reduce a little workforce in your security. So how, and I'm with Dr. Warren question, how can we help you? Because in parts and then the aging system, are we going to be able, because we had a lot of things going on last summer with deferred maintenance, and you and I talked about that. And so what is your plan on, because this stuff age and it has to have. And so what is your future plan for this?
So what our plan is to be able to use the FCA to come up with our strategies on how we replace deferred deferred and outdated equipment. And then we will come in and do that through CIP dollars.
Okay, with the CIP dollars.
And right now we are asking in this budget for some contingencies. What Chief was relating to, we'll use that CIP dollars also to offset some of the operational needs for the other divisions.
Okay. And what about our AC units? We're gonna bring them, you said online?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
We're looking at our copier contract in the fourth quarter. How does that look? How do we handle in that? Because they're coming up for, I mean, hey,
yes,
we're
ma'am.
here.
It's
and
there.
if you need some money, as they said, we don't want any surprises.
Right,
and so, with us talking and communicating and you sending us the information we need to know these things.
So we're doing everything we can now to reallocate resources to cover expenditures that we have. And so we are holding true right now. It's not easy, but we're going down to the wire. And we are reallocating resources to get things paid. In other words, we're moving budget line items around to ensure we can hold up the division.
And I know you probably think about our spring wrap up with the grass cutting and all those things that are going to happen that comes out of your department.
Yeah.
And so I hope you can come back with a plan and something that we can really look, because we don't want to allow that to be out of control.
Yes,
but thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you for your presentation and always being available whenever I have questions and you're able to answer them. So thank you and your team for your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilwoman. We're going to move into fleet. I'll say just a couple notes because they kind of transition the divisions, and they're thematic across this budget season and just macro level. What you heard from Chief Gibson, what you've heard from Solid Waste, which is it's whether it's private sector or LA. Chief Person talked about LA. It's the proverbial tightening of the belt. I mean, what you're seeing is the global economy and the global marketplace is reacting to a marketplace that's terrifying. Uncertainty is the worst possible thing. And so I don't envy General Services because they were probably the least well-positioned going into an uncertain marketplace and we did a PCA a year or two ago. I can't remember, but I mean, I'll just say it kind of more flippantly, which is we have old buildings and old cars. And they are very expensive to take care of. And what's even worse is that we have such old assets within these buildings that individuals are retiring, to which no one knows how to do what they did. And those parts are no longer manufactured or made. I mean, finding parts for some of our fleet is pretty incredible. We'll get into it in a minute. But I say that to say that it doesn't take any, and I know you know this, Director Jameson, so I say it with respect. It doesn't take any responsibility off of managing the budget for you or any other director. It's just we're in that kind of year. And while Dr. Warren is right that revenues and access to increasing revenues is an opportunity, tightening the belt, and I'm not saying that anyone has not, but tightening the belt is a part of the process too. And Director Jameson possibly maybe in one of the tougher divisions to do so. And the answer for the council is over time is helping support the plan with the data set that comes out and the report from the PCA, much like the fleet, and putting together a plan over time is the only way out of it, unfortunately. Much like manufacturing in the United States and much like large-scale programs, you just cannot turn these things on a dime. But I will say that from the former Director of General Services to the current director, and because of the body in both administrations, and I'm thanking all of you for putting light onto the fleet and onto General Services, as much as it can be a burden to the director to have to come and go through everything and talk through the pros and cons, it also brings support in areas in which there are opportunities. And so I'll kind of end it there because I think Director Jameson should have the opportunity to come back and speak with council members and talk about some of those areas of opportunities. One, because I don't think they need to be out in the public until the administration and the body wants to take those on, because you don't want to send people scared. But there are opportunities out there for us, and I think the council members should engage in those discussions, because really, I think we'll have to come to a decision with Fleet and with General Services on, where are the revenue opportunities, where are the expense opportunities, and some of those are more tricky than others. But I will tell you that I think there's a lot of opportunity in General Services. I've been telling Chief Adams, he and I have been commiserating for several years that there's a lot of opportunity with the structure. And I know that from an administration standpoint, they have been working on changing that, like going into Fleet, which is such a perfect segue, how we purchase and manage our fleet, which I think is one of our most significant areas of opportunity in the city budget. But it is also one of the hardest to make change because there are no quick fixes to it. So it takes administrative and legislative fortitude through the years to fix this problem. And I'll leave you with that. Director, yes, ma'am. That's okay. Yes, ma'am. The floor is, no, absolutely. Microphone, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Chairman. When I look under challenges and risk and general service,
Yes,
I know the council member and I, Bass Pro.
Yes,
why are we supplying a 24-hour emergency?
I'm generally speaking by agreement, but I think that's probably better. But either one you take, it's probably better for Chief Adams. It goes back to the bond, to how we did the original deal.
The
lease.
original?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. We have an agreement by lease that has obligations for the city that, but I'll kick it to let me kick it to the administration. That's an administration response.
Well,
Thank you. That was the next
So
question.
basically what that is saying that we'll respond just like any other city building to things that's going on at Bass Pro. 24 hours, we're not sitting waiting on things. If something happens, they give us a call on the items that we cover. So we have a breakdown on a matrix. There are things that General Services cover. There are things that Bass Pro covers. The things that they cover, they handle. The things that we cover, they call us. We put a team on it as quickly as we can.
Again, to Director Jameson's point, by agreement, when that location was renovated, there was a lease, and the lease was executed, and we understood that we retained the building systems. It's no different than any other managed lease that we have, same as the zoo, AutoZone Park, FedEx Forum, which we share jointly, and then, of course, river parks, etc. One of the things that you'll talk about and you'll see here, and it's unique to Fleet, is a cost recovery model where they're actually able to bill back for their labor, material, and then of course their labor and the fuel. Now, with respect to some of our properties, you don't have a full cost recovery for labor, but you may have full recovery for time and material. For material. Where there is a professional service, then it covers the labor, time, and material in whole. The difference is it is less expensive to utilize current staff. The problem is that we just don't have that pool of young applicants. And I mean, young can be of any age, but new applicants to actually enter those particular fields of trade.
Yeah, I think those are great points. He's absolutely right. Labor in these specialized industries are tough. And the only reason I'm going to go to Councilman Logan, I want to kind of cut it short, is because on this subject, I'm telling you, it is more beneficial. We could, like HCD, we could sit here and talk about this for a couple days. For members, I think the most beneficial thing will be to sit down with Chief Adams and Director Jamerson and go through those opportunities. And then if you hear one that you like, I think I would suggest at that point maybe bringing a piece of paper to the dais would be my wink and an eye. But I think there are opportunities there to be had. Again, I think it probably takes the body making the move, or saying we as a body support this recommendation from the administration, or we the body recommend this to the administration. Will you support us in executing it? But I think one-on-ones would be very helpful. Councilwoman Logan.
Thank you. And what you said kind of what I was thinking. But, I'm trying to understand the process, really, in that everybody we're keeping flat. Everybody's saying we're keeping flat. And either you are managing cash flow, you're spending based on cash flow, you or based on what you have and what you can use and the priorities, because it's hard to understand what we're doing. So it's sort of like we're going through the motions, but I don't really see what we're doing. And I don't know if we're going to do that at wrap up, or are we going to do that at all? Or are we just trusting, like, you got it, we got to trust you? But right now, I'm not understanding what we're doing, because we've seen along the way where the book says one thing, but then it says another thing in another page. And I get it, I totally understand, but I would want to know realistically, because I shared with division director this morning. They made a comment, well, we were going to use, and it's come out in our conversation, we were going to keep those positions because we need that, because we're going to use that somewhere else to do something else, and we use this over here. So I said, well, we don't truly know. We don't have the truth of what's going on, so we can't really vote and legislate and do our part without knowing the truth. Not to say that anyone is lying, it's just some things we don't know. We don't know the internal workings because it's not in these books, because you may not know. And if you don't know, we definitely won't be able to we won't know. And I would like to know so that we can prepare our constituents for what to expect. If we leave thinking that we're going to have the same services and it's going to be like it's always been, that's how we're going to respond, and that's how we're going to act, and that's how we're going to serve. But if we know, okay, no, everybody's budget is flat, there's no, the services are going to be reduced for a year, and this is what that looks like, it's on this level. I would feel better knowing in each division what does service look like under this budget, because this is not showing me. For instance, I'll just use the library. So we know we're not going to get anything new at the library, but if the priorities are, if something breaks, we got you. May not be able to clean the windows, with the contract with the windows may be reduced by 10%. We have to do that internally, so the high windows, you're not going to be able to get done. I mean, to that degree, so we'll know what to expect, and we won't be shocked, and we can talk to the constituents based on, well, this is what happened, and this is how this came about. This just for this year. Next year it's going to look different. So if you could, Chief Adams, if you could kind of speak to that, and I hope you understand what I'm saying, what I'm asking, and what I would like to see and understand.
Yes, ma'am. So with this flat budget, in some areas, because of inflationary pressures, there are reductions. And I'm talking about reductions in spending. There will be adjustments to services, but there may be adjustment to services where we operated inefficiently, meaning we opened up and operated when no one came in. And now we're not opening earlier, we're opening when people actually come in to our centers and locations. And we operate efficiently. We may have targeted and directed services at different locations whereas we just opened and no one came in and took advantage of the services. Mm-hmm. With respect to general services, one of the things that Director Jamison mentioned is he had positions that were open for at least a year or so. It's not from the lack of trying to fill the positions. It's just that we didn't have the applicant pool. So if you recall, we came to you and asked for the reallocation of those dollars to go to professional services to fulfill those services in that area. It doesn't mean that you don't need the bodies. You need the bodies. But until you're able for the labor pool to actually right size itself, and we have the applicants, you do have to then readjust those dollars. Doesn't mean you stop trying. You still continue to try. With respect to our buildings, yes, we will take care of our buildings as they need maintenance and they break. But any new additions, I think General Services will take care of the deferred maintenance in its CIP. But then they will also look to the other divisions who receive traditional cover lines, and they will use that as the capital reserve so that they can address some of those items before they run to failure within the budget. So we can talk more offline directly so that you can kind of understand how they will meet the services. But I think that kind of provides a little context to what this budget will provide.
Right. And it's kind of like when you're on a budget and you're in the summertime and the kids want to just do everything. They want to go here, there, and yonder. And you said, no, we're going to have staycation. So to me, you spell that out. What does that look like? So the children won't have, I tell them, don't expect this and that. This is what we're going to do. We're going to go here, and so that's what I want to know. What is the reality of what we are facing? Because I do know, based on Chief Person's presentation and our discussions, that we're at a critical state. And I want to make sure that we all are speaking the same language. Not that you want to bring mass, panic, but you do want people to be realistic about what we're looking at. So that's all I was asking, and I'll get with you offline.
Look, everybody's making great inquiries and asking all the right questions. So that's what we're here to do. So I mean, this is just one of the hard ones, and we need to go to Fleet, but I always view General Services as a standalone company, so to speak. We would call them we would call it a shared services agreement in the private sector. And that is why it can get confusing on the fund down and the expense out and expense in. But that being said, that business has to run their business because their client we have the same people, right? So their client is the rest of the city divisions plus their own intercompany thing. And it's hard to manage. So yeah, I could go on and on, as you can tell. But all right, great questions there. Fleet Fund, yeah.
All right, Fleet Fund.
And I will say, as you get into Fleet Fund, I do want, at the back end of your presentation, because it's a question that I let you off the other day on, and Vice Chairwoman had asked for it, but will you circle back, and if you want to, when you finish, or as a part of it, but when you get to the heel of your presentation, if you will touch generally for both funds on overtime in your plan, just because we had Police Go, Fire Go, and then I'll let you off the hook. But I want to make sure that she gets her question answered. With that being said, the floor is yours.
All right. So we'll go to page 2. So this is our Fleet Fund organizational chart, administration, fuel. So we operate, support over 4 million gallons of fuel on an annual basis. We have our parts and inventory department. And then we have our light shops, which handle MPD, body shop, turf and ag. Heavy shops is solid waste, and our fire shops, of course, for all fire apparatus equipment at the old Coke complex. Go to page 3. So page 3, key priorities. Key priorities is the main thing is to make sure that fire, police, solid waste are prioritized, making sure those vehicles are up and ready to be used every day, and we support their numbers as best we can. So that's our key priority. The second priority is to, of course, look at capital acquisition from CIP, get those vehicles ordered in as soon as we can, and execute on contracts and get vehicles here to replace the aging fleet.
All right, I have to do something that I normally would. I've got to interrupt and just ask. Sorry. Have to. Order fleet. Other than, and maybe it is inclusive of, but have we gotten to a point where we are now ordering bulk. As far as, let me back up and say it a different way. When I first came to the council, everybody got a car, in the sense of every director seemed to have the ability to order a vehicle, and we were ordering across the board. It was bonkers. Both from a buying standpoint, a management standpoint, and just facilitating, like, who owns the car, right? Does it belong to the police division or does it belong to general services? Kind of like the military, if you go out and ask somebody, that belongs to the motor pool. You just get to use it. And so I wanted to interrupt because this has been a significant hitch, and I think how we do business. So I've asked the broad question. I'll let you two gentlemen fill it in for me. But I hope that we if we're not there, we are super close.
So, Budget Chair, you are spot on. That's one of the items that you and I worked on prior administration. So the ship is definitely turning where, honestly, the sole owner of the vehicle is actually the finance division, our fixed asset coordinator, which will track it. Now, general services has moved into actually ordering all vehicles. So even the vehicles that are, I think, specifically identified for police take-home vehicles, those vehicles actually are ordered by general services. The vehicles that solid waste purchases from the solid waste fund, ordered by general services. We are going to move into more of a functional operation, whereas Public Works and the Enterprise Fund, their operations will look more like Public Works. So we are turning that ship.
Thank you, I appreciate it. And yes, Chief Adams is right. That's sort of, I just had to get into that, and I know it's Director Jameson's time, but it's just so important. Director Jameson, thank you for letting me digress us.
Thank you. All right. Yeah. So our breakdown here on major spending on the pie chart here. Materials and supplies, 51%. Inventory, which is fuel and parts on hand, 48%. And capital outlay, about 1%. Historical budget comparison, small increases from FY25 adopted budget to the FY26 proposed, but mostly flat. Next, key budget drivers. Key budget drivers, of course, personnel costs is a budget driver. That personnel cost is booked in the general fund under our expense recovery lines. But it is a big cost because of overtime. I know we will get to that. So M&S, again, that inflationary pressures, that's that cost of materials, service, and contractors that we use in order to provide service delivery for the divisions constantly go up, and we're meeting the challenges there to try to get things done for the division. Next page. 6. So, budget drivers here, fire shop overtime. Fire shop, so overtime, the biggest user of our overtime is the fire shop. And is at about 87% of the, I don't have a number in front of me, I think it was about 1.8 million yesterday that we were showing in Q3. So about 87% of that is coming directly from the fire shop. So fire shop, it's expensive, and we are trying to stay in compliance for the national mandates by providing frontline and reserve vehicles for the fire department so they can respond accordingly to the needs of the citizens of Memphis. So in essence, what we have here is aging fleet, fleet that is beyond its life cycle. It's past its time, and we have to keep these vehicles on the road by making these repairs. We do. Yes. Real thing. Real thing.
It's an antique.
It's an antique.
By definition.
So, of course, course, we have parts on hand for more efficient operation, but we are faced with inflation and we're faced with some possible tariffs. We'll see how that turns out for us. Page 7. Operational costs and maintenance. Like I said, labor has increased. We show labor has increased 25% over the past 2 years on some of our contracts, and we show part purchases have increased up to 50% since 2022.
Sorry, clarifying question there. To be clear, when you say labor has increased 25% in the past few years, is that internally or professional services? That's
professional services, external contractors, yes.
Because we're in charge of the labor. Go ahead, sir.
We have not increased our labor rate since 2012.
Will you give your name and title for the record?
I'm Eric Hunter. I'm the Senior Administrator of Fleet Services for General Services.
Thank you. And when you say that, will you make that statement one more time?
We have not increased our labor rate since 2012. We're still at $72.95 an hour.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Now one of our commercial vendors is charging $255 an hour. Our actual average rate is $170.75 an hour for our supporting elements on our outside. That's why we're doing so much overtime, because our labor rate with overtime is less than the labor rate for the outside source, period.
Yeah, I mean, we'll dive into this since the door's open, and I feel like it's going to come up. Yeah, I think it's a good point. I mean, at the end of the day, if this goes back to the opportunity, but it's one bucket of money. So this is really an accounting fee. It's quasi. It's an accounting feature and a chargeback rate. Although I guess, are you passing it on?
So it's passed on to the divisions through their shop charges and fuel charges. And the divisions book their shop charges and fuel charges in the general fund.
But my question to you, maybe it's Walter too, though, is what's that on the net of the labor rate itself? Like, to his point, if I'm paying $212 to a contractor an hour, I'm paying $100. I'm probably paying. Well, I mean, what's the trade go for now an hour? What's the trade? What's a labor hour?
My labor rate.
What's a market labor rate?
The average is about $170 an hour.
Right. So to the point. So I got $170 a labor hour in cost to me, the employer or the owner, and then I'm picking up $52 to $60 of a profit, whereas the city is basically saying we're going to make general services a loss leader internally, and that's why their budget looks a little wonky. In addition to the things, it's overtime and all the things that Director Jameson and Chief Adams have touched on. To bring this thing full circle, it's an accounting feature. So yes, we could make general services balance out, but all you're going to do is unbalance the other divisions' budgets, which is why that's an administration problem and why the directors always probably get pretty hot and fussy inside the internal dialogue. So I guess I say that to my colleagues to not go chasing after that as a outside revenue opportunity. It's an internal accounting feature. Is that everybody crystal? Yeah, cool. All right. Thank you, Walter. All right. Well, respectfully, I'm going to have to put it there. Yeah.
So, council members, the other part of this is, and you've seen us do this throughout the years, is we've had the benefit of favorable structuring with regard to our fuel. And so with that, we've been able to, since I would say 2012, we've negotiated where we've been able to actually build a fleet fund reserve. And so when we have tight times, we bring back to you all the opportunity to reallocate those fleet fund reserves back to the fleet fund operation to deal with the expenditures. All right. So again, I mean, Budget Chair Carlisle was spot on with respect to the mechanics of this mechanical operation.
Yeah. The hardest thing for me is they like our finance department, our IT department, our legal department, and what trades, as you all know, honestly, shoot, Tanera, what do you think a lawyer bills out of school? 150 an hour, 125 an hour if they're young, and they're lucky 210 if they're at a big firm? My point is that trades today, especially in a lot of the welding, CDLs, they have come back into, quote, fashion, and they have what you can make coming out of school after your apprenticeship, et cetera, is extraordinary on an hour. And the city is eating that left, right, and center from all directions because we're not in a position now with the private market to catch back up. And not to mention, we also just, even if we were financially, they're like any other employer. They got to go find a labor pool that either is here today that wants to do the work and is qualified, or we got to convince somebody to move here, which is a totally different set of challenges. Like, I'm going to tell you across the board, when you've got a population set of 650,000 people with 300,000 people that are of working age, you can start to wrap the math about, and of course we can go out in the MSA, but just to land this airplane, to bring this 1988 fire truck back into the station, we have a labor pool issue. Money whipping it probably is not going to be able to fix it, but at the end of the day, it's a real problem. I mean, there's yeah, absolutely.
That we have 364 miles of city land miles that we have to take care of, and your fleet has to go all over the place, and your people, so we have a lot of servicing that we have to do, and all of these peer cities that we are comparing ourselves to, or these places that we compare to, they are much smaller.
No, St. Louis is like 5 square miles.
Yeah, they like half the size. So we're all over the place with these same fleets and using that fuel. So that adds to the pot.
I'm going to drop one, then we have to get back into it. But also, please, to all the young patrolmen out there, please stop wrecking the cars. All right, let's keep a little brevity. Let's keep rolling, Melvin. For the record, firemen as well.
All right, page 8. Okay. All right, page 8. So we got a total of 2,511 vehicles that we show are basically should be beyond driving, but we're still using them when we have to, reallocating things to get them repaired. So this year, we have requested $10 million in capital improvement to address the aging fleet. So that's how we'll be using those capital dollars. And page 9 just shows that 2511. Pages 10, 11, and 12 are additional drivers. Fuel costs, fluctuating fuel prices can impact the operating budget. Right now, we're doing well because the actual fuel price is low. When it's low, we're in good shape. But we are, of course, we have a fleet fund reserve if we need to, in order if it goes high to recover that. Also, division demands for the major 3 divisions, Memphis Fire Department, Memphis Police Department, and Solid Waste at Ferrisview and Bellevue. These are their numbers that we try to hit on a daily basis. And page 11 are key budget drivers for vendor and supply chain issues, and page 12 is labor and staffing constraints. Page 13 is the new initiative. So mobile diagnostic service equipment, $20,000 each. We'll purchase 2 of those by September, and this will have help us to have better diplomacy, meaning basically to identify the problem with the vehicle, just like the vendors that we use, and then we'll be able to get those repairs made ourselves. And last page are the challenges and risks for general services, fleet department.
All right. I've got, thank you. I've got Dr. Warren in the queue. Actually, Dr. Warren, I'm sorry. Councilman Logan was in the queue, but you're good. Okay. Dr. Warren.
If we're looking at the amount of $10 million for fleet purchases this year, is that keeping up with getting back to basics, or are we still falling behind?
We're falling behind.
Okay, and how much are we falling behind?
It takes $20 million. We did the calculation, $20 million over 5 years just to catch up for fire police. That was 2 years ago we did a study. So I would imagine it's closer to $25 million now, just for fire and police to catch up.
And will you walk through what catch up means, or rather what our policy is for the city, our goal for basically what we would call our rollout or rolling, yeah.
Our rolling stock has life cycles, which means how long the vehicle should last. Our police squad cars are on a 5-year life cycle, which average 100,000 miles in 5 years.
Average?
That's on average.
I would tell you now it's actually more because they're
I want
rolling.
the average mileage on each car is what now?
Right now, the average mile is about 500,000 miles.
Okay, so the reason that I'm saying this, as we go
we
forward.
got cars right now at some of our shops because they calculate mileage by not just the odometer readings, but by hours of operations. And because we have so much idle time on our squad cars, some of our squad cars average mileage is over 1 million miles.
Yeah, so with that idle time, yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
For the last 3 years, all we purchased was first response vehicles, fire and police. That's all we bought.
And they're still behind.
And we're still behind.
Right.
Supply chain also killed us, but he's right.
No, we had that, but I mean, guys,
and this
it would be nice if y'all.
program we got right now is cutting our fleet in half because our quad cars used to operate 2 fleets. Now they only operate 1 fleet for the take-home vehicles. So those vehicles that are parked in front of the house are just parked in front of the house because they used to be on the road before we took them home.
Okay, you can stop there. We don't need to let other people know this. We're all good.
So,
we got where you're headed with it.
So
all right, Chief Adams, go ahead.
If I could shine a bright light on what we're doing. So with the creation, no, that's all right. With the creation of this new division, community enhancement, we are for the longest. This is an opportunity that Chair Carlisle has been pushing. Councilman Spinoza actually talked about early last at the beginning of this fiscal year, which is leasing. So we have lease purchase options. We're going to start with non-emergency sedans, lease purchase with maintenance included. So with that.
So can we see the numbers on those things? Because I guess, the whole thing here is about numbers and about planning in numbers, okay? And until we can see the number of vehicles that are out, but until we know cost it is going to be and how we're going to budget it in for the next 5 years to get caught up and where it's coming from, that money's coming from, then we're just sitting here every year putting our finger in the dike. We've been doing that for the 5 years I've been on the council. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I've got Councilwoman Cooper Sutton in the queue. Or no, we're good. Sorry. Sometimes I look down, I can't see who's. All right. Well, I will say this, Mr. Hunter, your directness and honesty is so refreshing. It's unbelievable. Not to say that anybody else here is not. It's just it's you got to watch out for politics and politicians, but it is so refreshing to just get just the brass tacks of it. And I think to Councilman Warren's point, it's a sobering reality. I mean, you all have received, I know you have to have received a text or a phone call or an email from an officer or a member of an association talking about what is happening on the ground when they're doing changeover from Alpha to Bravo shift, right? That car goes down, they're in trouble. I mean, guys are driving around in Ford Tauruses. You go all the way to solid waste. I mean, what's our lead time on heavy equipment now? 18, 24 months, roughly? Yeah. So again, I keep using the term legislative fortitude because I'll be long gone but nearby in in a few years, but this problem has got to extend councils and administrations. And with term limits, it's critical that that happen. And I'm really happy that the work started. But nonetheless, we've got a lot of good questions and a lot of information that I think is going to be critical moving forward. Looking at the lease to own program with the maintenance and the labor hours. So what I would like is, and I saw you guys taking notes, if you guys will get the information that the council's requested and get it back to us, really appreciate it. I will say for what it's, yes, I'll get to Councilman Logan in just one moment. Last comment I was gonna say is, for what it's worth though, I recognize the problem that you guys have. We do, and the council's focus on it is, I promise you, starts off a little shaky, but it's a move of support. Councilman Logan?
Does that, the lease option program also include the copiers and other equipment like that is available? Copy. You had mentioned earlier that we have like 300 and something copiers,
Yes.
copy machines.
Oh, yeah.
But I know there are programs out there for those
We're not
types of things.
purchasing the copiers. They're all leased.
They're all leased.
They're all
Good.
leased. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
that's what
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Went through that show. All right, colleagues. Any other questions? All right. You made it. We made it. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you,
everybody.
General
Thank you.
Services. Thank you. We'll get your the follow-up information. Colleagues, let's take a how's everybody doing? Oh, actually, before we move forward, let me set the record. I've got Councilwoman Green here and Chairman Canale. Please show them as present and happy to see you. I'm going to look down the dais. Do we want to keep moving or do we want to take a 5-10 minute recess? Keep going. All right, let's keep going. I'm gonna recess this for 2 minutes while we get set back up, and then we'll go. We'll recess. Big two. All right, if everybody will start making their way, if you're in the back hallways, we are going to get started here in just a second for the public. All right, I hear claps and cheers and finallys for the long-awaited proposed, sorry, we have rules to follow, proposed community enhancement. So let me gavel us back in and we'll get going. We are back in session with the Budget Committee of the Memphis City Council. It is Tuesday, May 13th, 4:32 p.m. And we are here to hear? Fine, we'll mess up at the end. We are here to listen to the proposed division of community enhancement. Take it away. Names and titles for the record, please.
Good afternoon. Melanie Neal, Senior Administrator for Neighborhood Improvement, 499 South Hollywood. Good afternoon again. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah.
Sure.
Welcome.
Good afternoon. Martikas Muhammad, Neighborhood Improvement Administrator.
Welcome. All right, y'all, take it away.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. The first slide, let me go to the next one, just shows high level, and Chairman, I stuck to the format for the presentation. We do have some supplemental information. I know you had asked for a detailed org chart as well as a list of positions since this is a proposed new division. So we do have that to share if there are members that would like to see that additional information, but we did stick to the presentation for these purposes. For community enhancement, we are proposing having an administrative service center, ground services. Of course, that operation provides grass mitigation services on privately owned vacant lots and lots with vacant houses. Our environmental enforcement team enforces illegal dumping as well as other solid waste ordinance violations. Our code enforcement team, they handle public health and safety related to residential structures as well as commercial structures. Our Memphis City Beautiful team handles grassroots, volunteer efforts, education, beautification, events, and projects throughout the city. And Public Services Corps, everyone knows Public Services Corps and loves them. They provide a second chance opportunity for litter pickup throughout the city. So those will be the proposed service centers for the new division. Our division authorized complement, we outlined what exists now currently in neighborhood improvement, a total of 159 positions. What we are proposing is a total of 183 positions, 17 positions for administration, 83 positions for code enforcement, 22 positions for ground services, 4 positions for Memphis City Beautiful, 54 positions for environmental enforcement, and 3 full-time positions for Public Services Corps. We are heavily part-time driven, and we can provide those numbers if you all would like to take a look at those. For our ground services operation, about half of that staff is part-time. So we have roughly 25 part-time employees for the ground services operation, and the majority of the Public Services Corps members are, of course, part-time employees as well. The total requested budget for the upcoming year is $14,721,814. That is made up of the existing $13.6 million for neighborhood improvement that currently exists under Public Works. There's another little over $1 million that will be coming from Public Services Corps, about $1.3 million that will be funded by solid waste. That is applicable to the 20 new positions for environmental enforcement. There are 2 supervisors and 18 environmental enforcement officers that will be coming over to the new division. So that reconciles to a little over $14 million. A breakdown of our spending categories: we spend about $12 million in in personnel, under $6 million for M&S. We have $180,000 in capital outlay and a little over $42,000 in grants and subsidies. Our key budget priorities are to be more strategic, to be more focused and comprehensive, whatever that footprint is. If it's corridors, if it's neighborhoods, we are looking to strategize on how we cover as much ground at the same time as possible. All of our services will be deployed in the same area at the same time, so we look to realize efficiencies across the board as far as grass mitigation, vacant lots being cleared, illegal dumping, discarded tires, and just basically all of the blighted things that we see throughout the city every single day. We are proposing that this division will prioritize and strategize on how to do that in a more efficient manner so that complaints stay down and you all don't get text messages and calls throughout the night and throughout the weekend saying that where's code enforcement, where's neighborhood improvement. So we want to be more proactive and more strategic on, again, whatever footprint is that we're focused on. If it's a neighborhood, if it's an area that needs a clean sweep, that'll be our strategy for the new division and our priority for the new division. This is the historical budget comparison. It just breaks out, again, what we looked at the previous slide as far as personnel, materials and supplies, capital outlay, expense recovery, grants, and subsidies, and our total expenditures, again, is $14,721,814. The key budget drivers are pretty comprehensive, pretty simple across the board for neighborhood improvement. We are attempting to clean up. We want to make the city look better. So it's our priorities and our budget drivers are very, very simple. We're focusing on education, engagement, enforcement, comprehensive code enforcement, and blight remediation. Memphis City Beautiful, of course, again, how do we educate? How do we get more people engaged? How do we appeal to the younger folks? How do we get in schools? How do we get more programs as far as beautify your schools and those programs that just get the population engaged and knowledgeable about what we do and how we do it so that, again, we can attempt to change behavior and clean up the city. Enforcement pertaining to residential and commercial code enforcement. Our field operations, we will be focused from start to finish on finding routes, as Chief Gibson mentioned earlier, to remediate those legal loopholes. We're dealing with privately owned property. So how do we get those properties back on the tax roll? How do we get those properties, receivers appointed for those properties? How do we get them in a status or a state that is not blighted? How do we discontinue pouring dollars down the drain for cutting vacant lots, for maintaining vacant homes? So again, this will be a major priority for us and of course a budget driver. Blight remediation through our environmental enforcement, ground services team, our public services core team. Of course, with blight remediation, our major drivers or our major focal points that you see when you're driving around are tearing down vacant homes, boarding vacant homes, and cutting the grass, and of course picking up litter. So we'll continue to focus on those blight remediation efforts. The next slide mentions qualitative and quantitative outcomes. So I'll go into our major, again, service areas in community enhancement. Grass mitigation, we're spending roughly $1.8 million. Demolition, we're spending about $1.5 million annually for tearing down vacant, blighted homes. That makes up about 70% of our total materials and supplies. Clearing dump sites is another major focus for us. Litter removal, beautification and recycling, and education events. We spend about $700,000 annually clearing dump sites, about $55,000 removing litter, and about $50,000 in beautification, recycling, and education events. Year to date, we've had 62 parks that are adopted through our Adopt a Park program. We've had 85 trash cans adopted through our Adopt a Trash Can program, and we're planning to launch our Adopt a Street program through Memphis City Beautiful. Year to date, we've also had 2,300 litter and beautification projects completed and over 1,300 volunteers year to date. We have cleared 1,900 dump sites, and we have collected 102,000 tires throughout the city through our ground services and environmental enforcement mitigation teams. I gave a breakout there of our structures that we've demolished as well as our lots that we've cut. Again, those are the two major drivers of our spending, and again, the most tangible things that you all can see when you're driving through the city. We've torn down year to date around 200 properties, and we've cut 17,000 vacant lots. Some of our performance metrics that we've looked at historically is our average response time. So when we get a call from 311, we're responding within less than 5 days for initial violations. That is commercial code enforcement as well as residential code enforcement. So when someone calls 311, we are going out and doing an initial inspection in less than 5 days. I believe our current average is around 2.5 days where we're actually getting out there to initiate some process related to code enforcement. Our average days to bring overgrown weeds into compliance on occupied properties is around 19 days. That includes the time that it's called into 311, when a notice goes out to the property owner, and when it's actually dispatched to a contractor to service the property. So from start to finish, when a complaint is received and the lot is actually cut, that averages around 18 to 19 days. And we're looking to take a deeper dive again with the new division to just look to see what we're doing very well and what we can highlight more of. And as everyone knows, the cases that are submitted to environmental court, we definitely want to track that, monitor that, and report like the secondary process for code enforcement. We know that we're responding, but we want to ensure that everyone understands what that secondary process looks like. We've got cases, of course, that have been in court for years, so we definitely want to document that so that citizens are and you all are able to understand where properties are in the process. So we will focus on the number of environmental court cases that are going through the process, as well as our cleanup efforts and our positive efforts through Memphis City Beautiful. I don't think we do enough of highlighting what we're doing well and what we're doing to educate and to get more people engaged. So we will be monitoring those metrics as well. And again, the number of public services core members, we're hoping to hire more so that we can cover more ground. And of course, that allows job opportunities through that process as well. Some of our new initiatives that we want to spotlight, our corridor revitalization plan. We've been in talks with MPD about several corridors throughout the city where, of course, they're experiencing increases in crime, public nuisance properties. We've talked about the Lamar corridor being like a pilot program where we are focused collectively on blight along Lamar from Winchester down to Ruthley Park Avenue. So we're covering a lot of ground, but ensuring that all of the commercial vacant properties, we do have some enforcement efforts related to all of those properties. We're hoping to, again, do a commercial blight cluster campaign, which means that if there are areas where there are vacant commercial structures that are next door or across the street from each other, then that will hopefully lead to development. If we are starting aggressive legal action, as Chief Gibson mentioned, then that will hopefully be a vessel by which properties are revitalized for development. And we'll also be partnering with our folks at Memphis City Beautiful to ensure that we're doing beautification projects throughout the process of our corridor revitalization program, just from start to finish, what it looks like now until we're actually able to get positive things going on along those corridors so that you see from start to finish, again, what it looks like in a blighted state and how do we get it back on the tax roll, how do we get thriving corridors, present in the city again. So that's a major focus for us. The mayor has asked that we are out and as visible as possible on the snow and ice routes that Public Works implemented some time ago. So you'll see our crews out cutting, you'll see our crews out picking up litter, you'll see our folks working for code enforcement, both commercial and residential, along those snow and ice routes that were adopted this year. Again, Chief Gibson mentioned our aggressive litigation process that has been implemented in partnership with the City Attorney's Office. And again, with the properties that we're dealing with, they are privately owned properties. They are owned by an owner who doesn't want to, can't, or just strictly chooses not to come into compliance, or maybe doesn't have the means to come into compliance. So that's been a major hurdle for us. So we're excited about being able to move the needle and again, get properties into the hands of receivers or those who are actually able to bring them into compliance. So we're looking forward to, hopefully in the next couple of months, adopting and implementing our administrative hearing process. We've adopted an administrative hearing process a couple of years ago for our properties that qualify for condemnation, but we will be doing the same thing for our properties that qualify for rehabilitation, as well as our non-structural cases as well. And the most anticipated impact is that we don't have as many cases sitting in environmental court. So this administrative process will alleviate some of those cases sitting for years and years and years in environmental court. We will partner this with our the adoption and implementation of our IPMC fee schedule. I'll talk about that on the next slide. But again, this administrative process is something that we're looking forward to, as it's worked very well with our condemnation property. So we've been able to get properties torn down quicker. Previously, anything that was torn down had to go to environmental court prior to it being torn down. So we're looking forward definitely to implementing additional types of code violations under that administrative process. As I mentioned, the implementation of code enforcement / environmental enforcement fee schedules, that is a part of our International Property Maintenance Code that was revised around 2018. So we do have the authority to charge fees for pretty much every type of code violation. So we haven't had a system in place that would allow us to impose and collect those fees as of yet, but that is a priority for us to implement a system and adopt a system that allows us to do so. So with every type of violation that we're communicating with the property owner about, there will be an associated fee. So in addition to the cost recovery, and actually billing the citizen for the cost of mitigation, then we also have the authority to enforce the International Property Maintenance Code. So if it's parking on the grass, if it's a derelict structure, if it is junk in the yard, there's an associated fee that goes with that. And again, that's something we're definitely looking forward to. We've had conversations about collecting environmental court fines and fees. That is another opportunity for a possible revenue generator, just to ensure that the cases that we're taking to environmental court, that we are, if the judge chooses to impose fines and fees, then we're seeing that we're actually collecting on those cases, because we're bringing them to a Shelby County Environmental Court. So that is a major project for us as well, and we're looking forward to any revenue generating opportunities associated with that. Challenges and risk for community enhancement. Any budget reductions for this division would cripple the overall strategy for being more comprehensive, more strategic, for covering more ground at the same time. I went through on the slide to talk about some of the numbers that we're currently realizing. We're up about 30 to 40% with the blight initiatives. Again, we're covering more ground. We're seeing city services under this division to mobilize at the same time. So if that were to change, if funding were to be reduced, then we would go back to a more reactive strategy. We've been able to be more proactive with the blight initiative so that we plan work. We know that we'll be in a particular area, a particular neighborhood on any given day, any given week, so we're able to deploy resources at the same time. So any budget reductions would disallow that, and again cause us to go back to being more reactive rather than proactive. And that concludes what I have on the template.
Well done. Well done. Thank you. I've got a couple members in the queue. I want to say one thing just on administratively. On this was handed out. This is unique. We've only done this one or two other times recently, but it's unique in the way that this is a consolidation versus throwing solid waste out. Because this is on the agenda as well, to create this as a division and in an effort to be cognizant of everyone's time, although it is budget, most of if it is not, we know how Public Works operates. They have been around. So if I could ask you as best you can, and again, I'm going to allow everybody wide latitude because it's a new division, but let's try to just recognize that we've got time both in the main council meetings to dig into, hey, random example. Hey, Melanie, I want you to consider moving Public Service Corps and having them do X, Y, and Z instead of A, B, and C. I don't want to get into that today. That's more of a operational forming division germane to a main council meeting. To the budget and how you're going to pay for this anyway, I think you guys get the idea. I'll try to do my best. Everyone will have wide latitude, but I just want to don't feel like we have to get it all worked out today, is I guess my main message. I wish I'd thought of that succinctly earlier. I've got Councilman Warren and then Councilwoman White in the queue.
You know, as you go through and you clean out these particular areas at a given time, it's been my experience watching on council that the minute you have that cleared out and you move away, people start to dump there again. If there is a backward camera that when you do this, you go back and you catch them right when they start to do it. I think it would save us a lot of money and time and effort, particularly if we put those people in jail, because most of them are doing felonious dumping. If we arrested them and they spent some time in 201, the odds of them going back and doing that will be less. So that's what will happen, though. And if we don't have that component, it's not going to work.
And we have about 100 covert cameras deployed throughout the city, and we have been working with MPD to be more aggressive on prosecuting those.
I mean, so as you finish that area, that's the call saying, okay, now we need you guys on these cameras for the next 10 days.
Yes, sir.
And I bet you within 10 days, you're going to catch the vast majority of the people that are doing the dumping, and that may keep them clean. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilwoman White. Vice Chairwoman of the Budget Committee, White.
Thank you so much, Chairman. I have a couple of questions. One is, do we have, and I know you don't have it here today, but I would like to see what we've built over the last couple of years, and if it could be broken down by grass cutting as well as demolition, and a chart beside it, what we've collected. And then the other thing is a breakdown of what it's actually, I guess it's actually gonna be on the same chart, what it's cost us for those years. And I met with you all already, so you all already know my other concerns about the demolished properties, and we're working towards that. And then as well as the fees, which I saw on your slide, so thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Very excited to see some of those initiatives roll out and some of the ideas that I've heard percolating. I've got Councilwoman Green and then Councilwoman Walker.
Thank you, Chair. I'm looking through your budget presentation, and on slide 3, it looks like you're asking for an increase in personnel of 24 people. Is that correct?
That includes the comparison that you're seeing. That's outlined currently in neighborhood improvement as it exists under Public Works. The proposed ask incorporates 3 positions from Public Services Corps, as well as 20 positions that will be newly added that are coming from solid waste that will be added to our environmental enforcement team. So we are comparing what neighborhood improvement currently looks like now versus the additions that will come with the new division. So we're proposing adding administrative positions as well as environmental enforcement positions and the 3 full-time from Public Services Corps.
So you're saying all of these positions are currently funded in other divisions?
The positions,
the difference in the 24 is they're all just sitting in other divisions, but all fully funded.
The positions that are coming from solid waste are funded.
All 24. I'm just asking if it's 20 or 21. Are all 24 of the new positions you're asking for already fully funded?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. It's really hard for me to compare what you're doing budget-wise versus the budget we have, and whether we're truly keeping things flat, because you're grabbing from a couple of different places. It would be very helpful to me if we had a chart that explained wherever it came from. If last year your personnel budget that came from A, B, and C was this, and this year it's this. Because I know your goal is to do more in FY26. But I also know in our current environment that labor costs more and materials cost more. And if we keep everything at zero, $1 is less than $1. So there's no way you can do more at the exact same rate. So that's aspirational. I appreciate that, but it's also just not going to happen. In fact, what will happen is a decrease in the number that you have already been able to serve. You know, yards you've been able to cut, buildings you've been able to demolish, things like that. Because if you have exactly the same amount of dollars and they spend less, When I go to the grocery store now, if I buy, a box of macaroni, it's $2 instead of $1, right? So we're talking about real dollars. Then the same thing applies across our government as well. And so it's impossible for you to serve 1,000 more yards or knock down 25 more houses or whatever it is that you have in your goals and keep your budget where it is. Either we have to have an increase in personnel or we have to have an increase in materials, et cetera. But I can't see whether you're holding the line in one place or the other or you've moved things around, because it's like last year everything was 0 and this year's what it is. I just don't know. I understand your bottom line of 14 million is what neighborhood services was last year. But if you're grabbing positions from other divisions, then your bottom line's probably actually larger because you're getting their personnel budget. So that's not really your personnel budget. Do you see what I'm saying?
Gotcha. No, we can outline it so that then there's a bit of it in that supplemental document that we shared, but I can, again, provide the chart.
Yeah, I think it's just the numbers, really, since we're in budget. I do have one question also on slide 5. Expense recovery, the 3.3 million, is that savings from vacancy?
That is State Street Aid.
I'm sorry, that's State
Street Aid funding. That is, there's an expense recovery for the type of work that we do that we get from State Street Aid. So that applies to street maintenance as well as to this budget.
Okay, so it's like a grant they pay us back when we do stuff. Hi,
Hello.
it's my friend.
Oh my gosh, he was
Walter and I
so
spend
upset.
so much time together during budget.
He had to move. He was so happy as he could be back there. The chief person, the name and title for the record, please.
Yes, sir. Walter Person, CFO, 125 North Main.
And I believe Councilman Green has a question for you.
Yes. So State Street Aid, we covered it during the overview period, but it's essentially a fund that's provided by the state, is based on the gasoline tax.
Oh, right.
And it's provided for the upkeep of roads, maintenance.
And when do
streets.
they reimburse you? At the end of the year?
At the very end of the year. Public Works has historically gotten a piece, so I think Public Works is getting a portion, and now Community Enhancement will get a portion of that allotment.
Yeah, again, and you understand, if they wait till you're done and reconcile your budget, then you're not really even getting it in that budget year, you're getting it in the next budget year. So that $3 million, again, is just, it's not helping, it's not gonna help you knock down more houses or cut more yards. That's really $3 million in the hole. Okay, I just, I say to the administration as gently as possible, because I feel like we, started our speed dating, and those of us who've been in multiple impasses have had lots of conversations about the budget, and we've had some meetings outside of what's public, but I feel like these aren't honest numbers with honest goals. And I don't mean that this isn't what you could do, but you can't match that up with the goal in this economic environment. It just won't work. And I don't want the public to be let down that, hey, you passed a balanced budget, even though you increased my taxes last year, but now we're not able to fill as many potholes or knock down as many vacant homes. It's hard for us to go back to our constituents and them not feel the result, especially when taxes were raised so high last year. And if we can't have a real conversation, if you really do want to do 1,000 more yards next year, I think everybody on this council thinks that's a fantastic idea. I'm sponsoring a blight remediation fee ordinance too. I want these houses and places cleaned up too, but we got to have a realistic number of what that's really going to cost. That's all, Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. Yeah, but actually, one of the things I was going to ask for at the end is kind of that apples to apples. I know I started looking through and I saw the document, but it'll be hard to get there. But I'd like to just see that hard number of, and it's going to be hard to stack it up. But basically, on the personnel expense, if you grabbed it from Public Service Corps, if we've got FY26, right, which is up, we may have to have something where you've got personnel expense in your column and almost like a structure chart to say Public Service Corps, and then it's FY24 AC, what it costs, and that way at least there's a visual to the comparison, to the apples to it. Thank you. You can tell we're getting to the end. Councilwoman Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for coming. Can you go back to the page where it talks about fees from environmental court? So are we currently receiving fines and fees from environmental court?
My understanding is environmental court fines are currently being assessed. And again, this is a Shelby County court by which environmental court operates. So we are working to reconcile what that collections process and that application process looks like as far as applying those funds back to the city. So that is
is that no? Kindly, is that a no?
Is a no, yes, ma'am. But the conversations are definitely in progress to understand to understand what that number is, and again what that's being applied to. No. Yes, ma'am. The answer is no.
So is that going to? I'm not trying to take us down a rabbit hole. Mm-hmm. So if that should happen, is that going to be via an ordinance or what? Do you have a firm plan as to?
Yes, ma'am.
How you're going to make that happen?
That's already happening. And again, the IPMC fees, we already have the authority to impose those fees. So at this point, no, ma'am, we would not need an ordinance amendment or an ordinance change.
Okay, thank you. I yield the floor.
It's probably fair to say that if there were one, you would have the full support of the council.
Yes, definitely. Gotcha.
Councilwoman Logan.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say that I think this is a wonderful opportunity in the sense to capture savings because of the way you're structured. Everybody was kind of all over the place, and there was duplication of services. There was a lag in services. One side wasn't necessarily talking to the other side. And, things like that over the years that I have seen personally and have shared with you all as well. And it was just because of the design. And so restructuring now puts everything under one hierarchy, I guess, or org chart with someone calling the shots. And, even the structure that we have now, I know when we were on the Blight Task Force and we started talking about everybody coming, instead of doing the zero things when you didn't have people, some people were coming now and then, but now having everybody come at one time and able to see the benefit of, and then talk to each other, not pass it and then call and say, hey, while I was doing this check over here, I saw this, and can you come tomorrow? No, everybody's there. And so I really am hopeful that having all of the areas that serve these, needs are in one division. And with the proper oversight and strategic planning and everyone talking to each other about what they're seeing and how to tackle it, it's a wonderful opportunity to be able to capture some savings as well as some revenue generating. So I'm looking forward to you all doing the tough work to do that. And I know you've done it before because y'all had that square 25 thing, 2512 or whatever that was. And so it's from everyone I've talked to, mentioned that it was successful. And because that's your structure now, we should be able to see some change in the communities, on the street as well as the bottom line. So I'm looking forward to it. And thank you for that.
Thank you, Councilwoman, for those comments and bringing us up in the rear, but certainly out in front, Chairman Canale.
Thank you, Chairman Carlisle. Colleagues, I was talking to Chief Person in the back, and Councilman Green touched on this, and we know that it's not a net neutral. It's not going to be net neutral, but Chief Person said he would get us a number back on what he thinks in the ballpark about what we think it will cost us standing up this division. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, look, I think I've been hesitant about things like this as well. We've had a division similar to this. I think it has the opportunity, and obviously, you know, the onus is on you to basically say, it's going to cost X. The question is does it generate the benefit damning the cost, right? And that's, I think, something that is going to be a theme, and I know Chief Person I've talked about. That's a theme that government, like businesses, are going through. Everyone, we have in the restaurant industry, we always say for our operators, sales hide sins. When you're crushing it on your sales, and everyone's high-fiving with Christmas bonuses and all these things, and no one's looking as closely at labor, and no one's looking closely at food and paper, right? And the minute your sales go down year over year, everyone's got their magnifying glass out, and that's just kind of where we are. And it's important because these are things that have been going on for a long time. So I'll wrap us up by saying the onus certainly is on us as the appropriating and the oversight body. And again, like the charter, the administration, the execution of demonstrating that is on y'all. So, but I agree with my colleagues, and especially my colleague from District 1. This division, like Public Service Corps, as it came on and kind of found what it was versus what it started as and what it became was the thing it needed to be, right? And so you hope that this division becomes the thing that it needs to be. And that's up to you. You will, I think, likely have our support, but ultimately, I think that's the jam. So, and it would be, it's a stupid thing to say, but I'm saying it anyway. We hope you do well. So with that, colleagues, if there are any other questions or comments for the proposed division, seeing none, I'll let you guys out of here. Appreciate you. Look forward to getting that information. We'll see you guys towards wrap up. And I think, are you on Tuesday for first reading? Are you first reading? Okay. So we'll have them back for first reading. So committees again are available. Housekeeping to the council members. Sorry. All right, kiddos. We are wrapping tomorrow because today's Tuesday, not Wednesday, which is about to come out of my mouth. We've got tomorrow's week is wrapping up, and presentations are wrapping up. But we are back tomorrow at 2 p.m. for IT, parks, human resources, city judges, including the city court clerk and the city council, bringing up the rear. And then DMC, the Downtown Memphis Commission, because we pass or approve their fee for the CBID, is coming on Tuesday to present versus coming to budget this year. I felt like that was more appropriate to have them come. I think they're coming. Are they coming to me or economic development? They're coming to me. Okay. So they'll be in my committee unless Jerry, do you have ED? Yeah. And then unless you really want to take them. Anyway, I'll see you guys tomorrow too. Be safe. Yes. Hold on. Councilman Warren. They're a grantee. We're not. I'll talk. Yeah, I got